Yo, guys. What do be poppin'? Hi, howdy ho, how are we doing? Welcome to the stream. I decided I was just gonna do a bit of just a kind of like a mental health Q&A stream, or probably just a Q&A in general type stream. Yeah, no, I'm not really feeling too up to playing any games or anything for the stream. I'm not really feeling funny haha right now, but I do have a funny story to tell you guys. You guys want to hear this story? Okay. So I'm going to call this story what do I call this story? I call this story how Jordan got detained by the police. Now, hold on. I want you guys to calm down. I know what you're thinking, but it was all a mistake. So I want you to think about this. So, basically, so to give you an idea, guys, one thing I regularly do as like a kind of like self-care thing is I go for nice little walks. I do that on my own time, and it's a very relaxing thing for me. I listen to some music, whether it's Slipknot blasting in my ears or if it's some calm Billie Eilish, is whatever it may be. So I got a text from a group chat I was in maybe a lap or so after I had gotten around our neighborhood saying, hey, there's this dude, Mr. Matthew Rishbeck, who is, kind of roaming around the neighborhood and, is kind of wanted by the police. So I'm thinking to myself, well, what do I do? And so what essentially ended up happening was I decided to myself, hey, Jordan, you could go another lap around. So I go another lap around, and I get halfway through, and a police car stops me. And so he's like, hey, buddy, yo, what's poppin', man? You got an ID? And I basically told him, no, I don't actually have an ID. I do have a school ID, not on me, but it exists. So he just asked for my name, and I'm like, yo, it's your boy, Jordan, asked for that address, which will not state my answer to that in this stream because, oh boy, I'm about to get doxxed. But, basically, he patted me down just to make sure I didn't have any, weaponry like apparently the criminal had. So he's like, all right, dude, you're all good. Don't worry about it. So, I'm gonna keep this here because I want to answer this question after I finish the story. I basically, after he kind of just let me do my own thing. I basically I make one turn through the neighborhood, and another one stops me. Now, the problem with this was when I got stopped. This time it wasn't a matter of, oh, hey buddy, you got an ID? Instead, this time, it was, yo, you are getting handcuffed up against the car. So I got handcuffed. And let's put up with the police car, and all I'm thinking to myself is, so, this is it, boys. I am a criminal now. And basically, he then after I got handcuffed and everything, then I was asked if I had any ID on me. And I said no. I gave him my address too. Kind of told him that I knew about the current situation that we were doing, and one thing that they pointed out was that I looked like the guy. Now, if I can pull this up, I think I can maybe try to pull this up because there's pictures out of this dude, Matthew Rishbeck. Ooh, man, Mount Juliet manhunt. Ooh, this is so. According to the police, and I really don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this in the slightest. But I found this kind of funny because according to Mr. Police Officer, if I can just pull it up on OBS real quick, I evidently looked like this man. I looked like this guy. I'll just pull it up like that. Yeah. So this was supposedly the guy that I looked like. I just want you guys to like think about this for a second because I don't know what I'm gonna do side by side. So then we have me. Now, if we just do a nice comparison, I don't know if my thing's actually gonna show. Come on, webcam, you got this. Oh yeah. So what they're essentially saying is that me and this dude, me and your boy right here, look kind of similar. See now, I personally, just personally, would disagree. You don't look like him at all. Exactly. Take off your glasses. I still don't look like him. It still doesn't fit. Dude, what's the difference? I cannot see. They look so like Mr. Police Officer. Exactly. Looks about the same. Nice mustache, dude. Thank you. I don't shave it at all. It's just kind of doing its own thing. I don't know. But yeah, basically that is the story of how your boy, innocent Jordo, got detained by the police. Now, I want to answer some mental health questions. So if you guys have any questions that you'd like to throw my way, mental health related, even just some general questions you guys have for me, I will accept it. There was one question that I was seeing while I was, what was it? Talking about the story, that basically was like, hey, how exactly can I overcome social anxiety? Now, I myself, when it comes to social anxiety, I'm not hugely susceptible, to I'm not hugely susceptible to dealing with social anxiety. I did used to have general issues though, where during school pep rallies, I would be very anxious because of all the people around me. And even in groups of just kind of smaller groups, that used to be an issue for me. Now, one of the first things that I did, and I did something that I typically try to prevent myself from doing a lot, but I zoned out. I literally distracted myself with something and then just turned the thinking switch off. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, it may be more difficult for you to zone out. For me, it's actually not that difficult at all. I zone out quite a bit, actually. But in a situation, even like a pep rally, I found that at first, when I started doing it partway through the pep rally, it didn't really do much. However, I noticed it ultimately started helping a lot. And also, one thing that I think helps a lot, even just outside of trying to zone out, was really just, really just thinking about things that I typically get myself sucked into the thoughts of very often. Now, because of the way that I personally deal with stuff, I tend to have this pretty bad issue where anytime if I think about something too hard that is a bit more negative, I fall into a kind of depressive episode, which I don't like that. I don't. It's quite Oh, I just spelled Diet Coke on myself. It's fine. I tend to fall into kind of a depressive episode for a little bit. I'm very, like, I don't actually know what issue I actually face. I haven't gotten diagnosed with anything yet, but I've heard from a lot of close people that it could be, what I have could personally be connected to bipolar, but I don't know. I'm not sure. But either way, what I've found is just either really trying to, as a summary, basically trying to keep yourself occupied with stuff that you deeply think about, or just being able to zone out if you are able to do that. Now, of course, if you're like me, and personally, typically you don't want to try and think about negative things, especially in a situation where you're already kind of ridiculed by this negative emotion, being anxiety. I've just found that, thinking about the positive things, like for me, it's like realizing that the living situation with me and the person that I want to live with is, the plans we're having are all really coming together. That is a very positive thing for me, and that is one of the big things that for me, in probably a situation of trying to prevent social anxiety, has really helped. And I think now I've gotten better to the point where now I could literally interact on the same levels that people at pep rallies do with friends of mine and not really get anxiety ridden over it. Let's see. Well, I have friends, but I don't feel good around them. But if I try to get out of that circle, I will be alone. Oh boy, brother. I can relate to this way too much. I tend to have this issue myself. Now, I'm going to assume that, now obviously, I'm not exactly sure what you mean 100% by that you don't feel good around them. What I am assuming you probably mean is they just kind of give you like bad vibes, which is, listen, man, I get it completely. I recently got out of a kind of a rocky friendship that I was really attached to for quite a while, of someone who, even for the longest time, as much as I denied it, felt very controlling. And I think one of the big things that even sometimes now I tend to worry about is losing the people that I have now would make me tend to feel alone. Because I kind of want you guys to put something into perspective, and I don't want to be too sappy about my own life here. But personally, I've had to 2019 was a weird year for me because I explained this in my year and change video, but I had to essentially cut some people out of my life who were just doing me so much negative. We're putting so much negative energy on me and making my depressive episodes worse. Let's see. I just knew I had to kind of step away from it. And ultimately, the one thing that I've learned is that it has helped me out so much. I'm kind of really left with only one real close friend of mine left, but you know what? It kind of works out. But the thing that I want you to realize, because this is your situation, so I do not want to get too caught into this kind of thing. The feeling of being alone because you get yourself away from this energy is very normal. That is one of the big things that you should know right then and there. It is normal to feel that anxiety of not having people around you because typically you want to have people to surround you for support. I think this kind of reminds me of a video that I made, one of my first mental health videos that I made, or maybe even the first mental health videos that I made on this channel, not on the Mending Minds channel. But it was basically kind of trying to give you guys a good idea of how you can have possible interactions that can lead to making close friends and just certain things that may help. So I think one of the big things is, first of all, I know obviously you're specifically surrounding yourself with a issue of not having too many friends. And one thing I would suggest to you, and I don't know about your family life or anything, but if your family life is at least okay, you should, maybe try going to them for support. And If it really does honestly come down to it, you can try your ever-loving best to seek professional help about it. And I'm sure that any therapist would be happy to try and guide you through meeting new people. Because if there's one thing that I can guarantee you right now, the feeling of being alone because you don't necessarily feel as if you have friends is something that can lead into some depressive droughts. That is definitely something that can happen. However, one thing I want you to realize is that you can also be in a situation where you also have to realize that situation with loneliness ultimately is a lot better than constantly having this overbearing fear of not only the loneliness worry on top of you, but also just the toxicity or the troubles that you feel around these people who are identified as your friends, but don't necessarily you don't feel that way. And it's not, instead of being like a good piece of energy for you mentally, it is mentally draining you. That's one of the big things that I learned. So ultimately, one thing that I think is very important, because I highly suggest that you guys, if you are in a situation like this, that you try and possibly look into the video that I made, kind of discussing some ways to better make interactions with friends. I don't remember the exact title off the top of my head, but I have a video about this kind of topic that you guys can look into. But ultimately know that you have to give yourself that space. You have to step away from that toxicity, because believe me when I say, the longer and longer you build that toxicity up, the more you allow it to happen, the worse your depressive episodes are going to get. So that is that one. Obviously, I rambled on quite a bit with that one. But yeah, let's see here. Am I a crybaby if I cry under pressure? Like if my peer says pass the ball or something, that isn't a question and is a demand. One thing I will definitely say, crying under pressure is quite literally a response to stress. It is a normal response to a human emotion. And crying in and of itself is a normal, very, very normal actually, response to that stress. Because it's literally, for that split second, it's very much putting a lot of your thought processes on overload if your brain has a harder time processing it. But I don't know. I'm one of those people where unless you're kind of like, what is it? Unless you're an infant, I really just don't like the term crybaby. I never see why people are just so quick to call people crybabies, because it's a normal human emotion to cry. For the longest time, I always tried to hide back tears, and I'm a very emotional person, guys. I want you guys to realize that. But it's a normal human emotion, and ultimately, if you bottle that up, I mean, you're not only are you not giving yourself the amount of drainage, just letting it all out, letting every emotion that you're feeling bottled up about out, but you're also, just kind of bottling up what the human system is not at fault for doing. It's not one of those situations where, like, say you get some type of, some type of health issues because of something that you choose to do. This is a situation where it's a normal human emotion based on the things that go on around you. But yeah. Let's see here. I have a fear of abandonment and bad social anxiety. The way my friends and I talk makes me feel like an outcast. I feel as as if I don't have anything to contribute to their own conversation, but they're all I have. Help? Okay, so I think the biggest thing to keep in mind here is what you definitely shouldn't do. And if this has ever been a thought that's crossed your mind, because originally with friends that I've had to leave in the past, when I first started talking to them and first trying to get a close interaction with them, I felt like I was outcasted, similar to this situation. But by that time that I had realized that, I had begun to grow so close with them that because I didn't have any close friends at that time, I felt like this person was, kind of all I had. And before I even knew it, I realized that the jokes that I'd make, the type of person I would represent myself as, would be different from who I actually am. From, some of my beliefs would almost be different around them. Some of my feelings would obviously be different around them. And I think the biggest thing, if you can absolutely shoot for this, is really just, and this kind of ties into the first one that I talked about, or not the first one, but the one I talked about that kind of went to the similar situation. You can always refrain back to the video that you can always refer back to the video that I made discussing how to properly make an interaction with people and, try and grow friendships. And I think in this situation, it's actually very important because one thing that I've been very cautious about as I make new friends, or actually it's kind of always been like this, but I never directly approach them and go, "Hi, I'm Jordan," or anything like that. I don't do anything like that. What I essentially do is I kind of just act like myself in kind of the general vicinity of them, which is, as you guys may or may not be aware of, kind of weird, kind of goofy. In fact, I'm probably way more weird and goofy off camera, believe it or not, when I'm not having my depressive episodes. But the big thing that I gathered from that was the people who are interested in that may say something, they may not. They may feel the same way, they may not. But me doing that is the exact reason that I have a friend to me who is very special. Me trying to make a friend in that special way is the reason that I've been able to make a really good interaction with someone I care about so much. So I think ultimately one thing you have to realize is that I kind of look at this in two different situations. One, if you don't feel as if you know what to contribute to the conversation, if you find any open opportunity to, try starting your own conversation with them. Now, this also could be a good testament to what they feel as if having a conversation about is important. Because through you starting these conversations, you can kind of start to try and see if they have a general interest in what you're talking about. And I think at that point, they can kind of try and connect on a better level with your realist self, your realist personality. It helps to connect on a better level with that. But if in all honesty, worst case scenario is if you kind of just have to really just find some other types of people that you feel as if you can have a proper conversation and contribute to it with. And of course, like I said, you can refer back to the video that I made about making friends with that. And of course, in this situation, I feel as if it's very important. And you kind of just want to try and apply it to whatever your personality type is like. So maybe in some capacity, if you're maybe like a huge book reader or something, you could maybe try and read some books you like a little bit more often around them, and they might have some general interest in that. Or if you're like me and are really goofy, you could try talking to some people as it is and being really goofy, and then maybe that person will catch on to it and join in with you. That was how my general situation worked, but that's kind of the way that I look at it. It's kind of similar to the last one, but I feel as if, especially with this situation, that video that I have been referring to would definitely be helpful with this, and I think you could get a lot more straightforward information out of it. Let's see here. My friend really wants me to know more. My friend really wants me to know more about me because I don't talk about. Okay. I'm going to assume. I'm going to assume. I'm going to try and reword this. My friend really wants to know more about me because I don't talk about my feelings easily. Is there a way to not feel embarrassed and judged whenever I open up to people? Now, this is a big thing because I think a big part of building up certain friendships is that you want to be able to feel as if you can open up a lot. I feel like when you think of the typical friendship and you hear people kind of give a description almost on what the typical friendship is like, I feel like the idea of being able to open up gets easily glazed over. I feel like that's something that happens a lot. But that's a very important piece of it. So, what I honestly recommend is, I think especially, and this, I think there is definitely some kind of boost. If in your own personal life you are feeling a lot more negative emotions that are not necessarily being let out to anyone, or that specific person that wants to know more about you, you kind of get this, like, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. For one thing, you're in a situation where you're letting your feelings out that might have been bottled up for quite a while. And on the other hand, you're also achieving that goal of letting that friend of yours know more about you. So it's kind of, it's a very much a killing two birds with one stone deal. There's two different things. There's two different conflicts that you're facing there, and you're really just getting both of them out of the way with that one thing. So that's in the situation that if you're in a more negative state of stuff. Now, if your life is a bit more positive, I think some feelings you could discuss isn't necessarily about your own feelings of your own mental health. It doesn't have to be that. It could also be your feelings about certain topics. And of course, if you know much about your friend, you could also try and cater those topics that you state into basically what they're interested in, or even better, best case scenario, what kind of topics you're both interested in discussing. That is very important because not only, and again, this is kind of similar to the other situation where not only are you getting the feeling, them feeling about the feelings situation out of the way, but you're also allowing a better side of your friendship to open up, where now you can have even better discussions than you previously could, all because you opened up about your feelings about something, even something. So I think the biggest thing to realize is that there should never be a piece of embarrassment that comes from opening up, because ultimately, if your friend, and I must say this, if your friend is someone who is wanting to really discover more about your feelings, that is never someone you should ever feel embarrassed to talk to, because ultimately, they want to know more about what you feel. Maybe they feel as if there's something that they just want to know about you. They want to be able, they have that commitment to strengthen what you two have. So that's kind of the way that I look at it, personally. So yeah, that's just kind of imagine it as a situation where there's a lot of branching paths if you allow yourself to open up feelings. You're getting a lot of two birds, one stone situations out of it, no matter what kind of emotional feelings you're expressing: anger, sadness, happiness, whatever it may be, wherever it's a general topic, whatever. ultimately it's actually allowing your friendship to strengthen in more of a way than just opening up about your feelings. So that's the way that I look at it. Let's see here. Let's see. Can I find anything? Do 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 do. I have a friend who just left me a while ago. I have been friends with them since kindergarten. He just hangs out with the quote unquote cool kids. I have new friends now, yet he feels important to me. What could I do? So, I think the biggest thing to realize is that obviously, and especially in a situation where obviously you mentioned that you've been friends with them since kindergarten, obviously that's a very big deal. And by no means, I absolutely can notice right off the bat that if you've been friends with them since kindergarten and suddenly there's just this toxicness that has to really separate you guys, it's going to be hard to get over that still. Who knows? Maybe you're even in a situation where at first you're kind of just like, yeah, I'm glad that I kind of distance myself from this. I'm glad this is a better achievement for me. But then over time, it may realize you may come to this conclusion that, I miss them. I miss the interaction that we had. And that is completely normal feeling. But I think one of the biggest things to realize is that you obviously mentioned that you have new friends. Now, I don't personally know how close you are with these new friends, but one thing that you can be glad about, and I very much hope this is the case, one thing that you can very much be glad about is that you're in a situation where you're happy around these friends. This is the chance for you to strengthen yourself into a new kind of, strengthen yourself by being around people who fit better with you. And over time, I feel as if while you'll, while it's going to be still really hard to overcome the breakage between you two, it's definitely a matter of realizing that where you are at now, the people that you have now, that's one less toxic person in your life. That's one less opportunity for you to go into some negative drought, for you to necessarily feel as if, they're boggling you down. And I think over time, as you start to remind yourself of that a bit more, remind yourself of those good things that distancing yourself from this person has done for you, it'll ultimately start to just strengthen your emotional stability. And then on top of that, you'll also have the addition to where, once your emotional stability just kind of keeps itself in check for a good while, you'll kind of just forget that factor of I've known them since kindergarten. And, if you ever do come up to think about it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I've known this person since kindergarten, but, they just changed. They changed in a way that really affected me, and I just didn't think I could deal with it. And that's, people change. Sadly, some people change for the worse, and that is a truthful scenario. And in some cases, maybe people don't even change for the worse, but necessarily it's not what aligns with you, and it isn't something that aligns with you and makes you feel comfortable. And that is also okay. But the biggest thing to note is that you're doing yourself a very good favor by allowing yourself to be around these other people that are not causing you distress and that are not boggling you down. And ultimately, like I have mentioned, the big thing that you should take away from this is that as you allow yourself to strengthen the friendship that you have between these new friends that you've met, your emotional stability will then increase, and your focus will be left off of missing them. And, first of all, missing them because of the fact that they were possibly such a long-time friend, but then even as a whole missing them because, they were such a negative point. They were such a negative influence in your life. They were such a negative, they caused such negative feelings in your life. That's basically what I'm trying to get across there. So yeah, that's pretty much what I got for that one. let's see here. I gotta go. I hope you all stay safe and alive. I'll remember you guys if I see you in the next one of these. Bye, everyone. Bye. Um, let's see here. Okay. Ever since my grandpa died, I've been a lot less happy, and some of my friends have started to notice and are worried, and it makes me more unhappy to see them worried. Well, first thing I'd like to mention before anything, I am very, very sorry for the loss of your grandpa. I certainly hope that the grieving process is very easy for you, and it just kind of settles in. I understand that's got to be a very difficult loss. And one thing that I think is very, very important to realize is that there's kind of the way that I look at it is that obviously I do know that you are worried about your friends worrying about you. And I think ultimately the way that you should think about this is from a perspective of what is a solution, what is a quick solution to this general issue. So obviously in this situation, I think we actually have ourselves another two birds, one stone type ordeal here. So what I am noticing is that if you're the way that I look at it is that if you're in a situation where you're worried because your friends are worried due to the loss that you had of your grandfather, I think you want to take this kind of one step at a time. So the biggest thing that you want to think about is what is the best source to let out what I'm feeling? What is the best source for me to help let out my feelings and all the grieving that I am having to do from my grandfather's passing? And that ultimately could kind of flip a switch in your head. If you ask yourself that, that could be something that flips the switch in your head. Because at that point, one thing that you may realize is, oh, my friends are kind of concerned for me and they want to make sure I'm okay. So this is ultimately where we try to get that second bit of that second issue out of the way right away. We're getting that second issue out first. So obviously in your situation, you've got this piece of worry because of your friends worrying. And so obviously when you're in a situation where you need someone to open up to, you need someone to open up your feelings about your grandfather's passing to, the biggest thing that you can honestly do for yourself is really open up how you feel. It's very clear that if they are showing worry and concern due to the events that have happened with your grandfather's passing, they obviously care enough and will hopefully care enough to listen to all of the grieving that you may have to do because of what you've been dealing with. And so here's where the killing two birds with one stone situation kicks in. You have the first situation where you are alleviating yourself of the worry because you're finally opening up to your friends, which is minimizing their worry because you're opening up about it. You're letting your feelings out about it. And then you have kind of the first part of the situation, which is you having to deal with the grieving of your grandfather's passing. And so in that regard, you are essentially, with you opening up to your friends, it will hopefully allow you to just let everything you're feeling out and will hopefully help you. And so in that, when you have that, you're not only removing the issue of all of the feelings and negative emotions that you're feeling from your grandfather's passing, but you're also allowing yourself to I'm having a brain fart, sorry. You're allowing yourself to get rid of the worry that you have for those close to you that may also be worried about what you're going through. So like I said, that is very much a situation of killing two birds with one stone again, and I think in a lot of psychology situations, that is something you'll find very often. So don't be surprised that within a lot of questions that I do with this, if I happen to mention, the term of killing two birds with one stone. So what else do we got? Okay. Okay. This is a big one. This is a big one. Is there a way I can explain to my other family that I don't have to forgive my dad? He assaulted me and can no longer contact me by law, but they keep pressuring me to forgive him. So, oh, sorry. I'm actually spacing out a bit from this one. Actually, I have a text. I have to answer a text, guys. Hold up. I gotta answer this text real quick. Hello, phone. Oakley dokley. Gotta take a sip. Oh. Some good Diet Coke. Let's see here. Okay. So, back to what I was talking about. This one, I'm not going to go too into detail about this, but this one does personally hit a bit close to home for me. But to kind of give a rough explanation, one thing that I think should definitely be kept in mind is that there is definitely a lot of I'm trying to think of how to word this. I'm sorry. This one's kind of got me a little bit spaced out, actually. Let's see here. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm sorry. I kind of, the way that I look at this is that the first thing I should point out is that you definitely, and as hard as this might be, I 100% understand if you have a disagreeing viewpoint of this. But I think the big thing to really keep in mind is that at some point, I think I don't think there should be any forgiving of his actions. Let's see. I don't think there should be any forgiving of his actions. Yeah, there shouldn't be any forgiving of his actions because by no means there's in my honest opinion, I find it very hard to forgive stuff like that. And even if you do forgive, it's very much a forgive, never forget. I think one big thing to point out is there's very much I think it's one of those situations where you can't keep it bottled up. You really cannot keep it bottled up. Especially as something as severe as that. Because I think, especially when you're in a situation like this where he can no longer have contact with you, it's very important to recognize that you are not in harm's way anymore. He's not allowed to have contact with you. So therefore, if he ever does happen to hear about it, unless he wants to land himself directly into jail, there's nothing he can do. You have a voice, and it deserves to be heard for stuff like that. especially with the ones who live in such a close, like they're, when you're in a situation where they were in such a genetic environment, this is his family. And I don't look at that as a situation of, oh, we just need to make him look like the scum of the earth. But I look at it more as a situation of, they need to know the truth. They need to know who this person really is and what they did and how much pain it caused you. They need to know that. And especially with stuff like assault, you have a voice. You have a voice, and it deserves to be heard. Loud and clear. And that is one of the big, something like assault, whether it's physical, sexual, anything like that. Your voice deserves to be heard about it, especially with family. Keep in mind that he can't hurt you anymore. He very much cannot hurt you unless he is willing to really risk getting himself locked up. So let it be known to your family who the true colors of that person. Let it be known. Because they deserve to know what type of person he is. And they also deserve to know just how much it affected you. So that's the big one that I point out there. I'm sorry that one was so I'm sorry that one was so kind of like all over the place, but it hit a little close to home. So I wanted to really try and make sure I was emphasizing it, right? Let's see here. What else do we got? Let's see here. I'm having to find a good question here. I'm sorry guys, I'm really looking for a good one here. I'm really trying to look for a good one. When my aunt died from an unnatural cause, I started crying in public, which I never did before. Even when I feel like crap, no one ever stops and asks to see if I'm okay. Well, that's definitely one of the rough parts about society, is that a lot of us, especially if we're just in a public environment where a lot of us are just going to do things, a lot of us never stop in that moment. And it isn't bad necessarily to do this, but it is kind of funny how we never really stop to think, wonder what's going on with that person, even when it's very clear that there's something going on. And obviously with the whole, you crying in public thing, in a situation like your aunt dying, if it's something that really does pop up into your head, and if it's something that you're thinking about, it is okay to let it out. It is absolutely okay to let it out. Never be afraid to do that. Doesn't matter where it is. Doesn't matter how many people will pay attention to what you're feeling. It doesn't matter whether they notice or not. You've got to let it out. You've got to let it out. You can't keep it bottled up. You really can't. But the main thing to really realize is that I want you to try and think about something, because obviously there's this issue, obviously, that you described where people aren't, stopping to make sure if you're okay when you are just kind of crying in public. The big thing that I think is very important to realize is that while you are letting out all this emotion through your tears, it's also very important to let it out verbally what you feel. Whether it's out of your comfort zone or not, that may be a point where you really need to push yourself out of that comfort zone. Really. And if you're able to do that, it helps out a lot. And I feel like one of the best places that you should start in terms of opening up with those people verbally is people you are insanely close with. If you're kind of minimal on it, and I think this goes for anyone who's in a situation where they have depressive feelings that are boggling them down that they want to let out. If you are in a situation where you don't feel as if you can have anyone that you can 100% open up to, write it down. Write whatever you're feeling. If you feel just so infuriated or anything or whatever feeling it is, the situation that you could literally just scribble, do that even. It lets it out. It lets what you're feeling out. It may not be 100% verbal, but guess what? It's another way, even outside of just your tears, to let out what you're feeling. Write it down in a diary, just whatever journal, whatever it may be. Don't be afraid to really look into these coping mechanisms. And, for me personally, verbal communication with this kind of stuff really does help. I also do the journal stuff from time to time. And, some days I'll just write in there and be like, hey, today's a good day. But sometimes I'll write in there and it could be some of the darkest stuff I've ever wrote. That's essentially the way that I look at it. So I think the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this specifically, is that you obviously are very aware of the negativity of, just how people weren't really stopping to make sure if you were okay. And, I think the biggest thing that you have to do is focus yourself away from that. Focus yourself on the good focus yourself on the good of what certain people could do for you. Whether that's talking out what you're feeling, or even better expressing just through a journal or something to that effect, what you're feeling. It helps in the long run. It really does. That one kind of went off on a little tangent, so I'm sorry, but let's see here. Let's see if I can. I know this isn't a problem. The situation I want to share is too long to fit in live chat, but I just want to say thank you for this, Jordan. This is really helpful to people, and it makes me happy to see. Thank you very much. That genuinely does mean a lot, because, stuff like this is what I want to do for a living, honestly. I'm very passionate about it, and yeah, thank you very much. That really does mean a lot. Let's see. I gotta find me one. I feel like I feel like my emotions are locked behind a mask. I mostly keep my emotions to myself because after many attempts at hotlines, therapy services, and a visit to the ER or Valentine's Day 2 years ago. Well, I think one thing to really realize is that one thing that can obviously be very painful, especially when you've gone through all these different styles of treatment and, finding that they don't work, is that you it can obviously be very distressing seeing nothing change, feeling as if nothing changes. That can obviously be very distressing for a person. And ultimately, admittedly, it does boggle them down. It makes them feel powerless more and more as these types of things keep happening. One thing I did notice through your list of stuff that you've tried is you could possibly, especially since you're in a situation where therapy didn't help you, there's kind of two things that I'm thinking about. One, I think there's something very simple that I want you to try and do, and it's just open up to people you're close with. Obviously, you have the therapy sessions, which I think from a more professional aspect, like a professional help aspect, you seem to have gone for that, which isn't bad. I think it's also worth noting, though, that obviously with therapy sessions, this is kind of like you having to adjust to a person that you are not 100% familiar with. It's kind of one of those things that does push you out of your comfort zone, and ultimately, you knowing that throughout your time during therapy can make it a bit harder to kind of adjust, if you will, to the it can make it harder to adjust to what's being said to you in therapy. Now, another one that I'm seeing that you pointed out was hotlines. Hotlines, I think, I think hotlines are very much just situations of desperateness. I think it's kind of like, and that's not a bad thing. I want you to realize that. It's not a bad thing. But it's one of those things where you meet such a wit's end and, you need someone there. I think one thing I want you to try and realize is opening up to those you are close with, those you are familiar with, could make a difference. I think one of the big things that really turns people off from therapy and maybe even hotlines and how it doesn't help them can often be due to the fact that it's them kind of doing something out of their comfort zone. Not that I think doing things out of your comfort zone is a bad thing. In fact, it actually, in some scenarios, strengthens you as a person. But of course, in a situation like therapy or hotlines, typically the person wants to feel as if they can connect with this person. And for some people, that connection doesn't hit instantly with a therapist or a hotline phone number. So if you have someone, family or friend, close in your life that you can open up to, that you are close with, that you feel like you have a good connection with, that you feel like will listen, on top of that, try opening up to them. Because I think ultimately, you having to adjust to a new person, adjust to a new environment of help, can boggle you down a bit in some scenarios because it's not what you're used to. It's not the same close comfort that you're used to, and that's not to say that therapists or hotline people don't try to make sure they can establish a connection so that the client can connect with and communicate with them better. It's honestly just that, it's honestly just a matter of you have to they don't know you immediately. They might know pre-information about you prior to your first visit. But they don't know the situation directly. So it's an adjustment. So what I heavily suggest is just trying to interact with those closer in your life, those who you better know, those who you're more experienced talking to. That's the best bet I could really have for that general situation. I'm going to answer one more question. Let's see if I can find a good one. Let's see if we can end this off with a banger. Do we got anything, boys? Let's see. Okay, I won't count this. I won't count this against my I won't count this against my uh one question, but favorite color's pink. I see. I've been seeing that message for a little bit, so I apologize. But yeah, I love pink. It's a very good color. Uh, let's see here. All right. Ooh boy. All right. This one looks like a big one. I'm ready. Um, any idea what to do about 9 years of molestment when your abuse got no karma at all? It didn't end that long ago. People either blame me or don't believe me. I just still don't know how to deal with it. Um, well, first of all, I am incredibly sorry that you had to deal with that for 9 years. I absolutely can't imagine how miserable that must have been. But I think situations like this are hard because obviously when you have 9 years of trauma like this, that is by no means easy to get over. It's something that kind of engraves its way into you. I think the biggest thing to really keep in mind is as you are trying to get yourself through the healing process, as you try to get through this healing process, the big thing you need to be mindful of is that what has happened to you doesn't define you. You should never let it define you. And what it should really, really say is that you overcame it. And for 9 years, you made it through that misery. And whether you know it or not, whether you right now feel that way or not, it made you a stronger person. You may not feel like it. There may be a possibility that you cry more. There may be a possibility that it boggles you down a lot. But think about it for a second. The biggest, most important thing is that you're still here. And that says a lot given that was a situation for 9 years. For some people, that is unfortunately a situation where they can't handle it. But you made it through it. And I think in terms of really trying to help yourself overcome it, especially since you did mention that it didn't stop not too long ago, really just surround yourself around those you love and who will really, really and I seriously mean this, who will really be there to give you a lot of emotional support specifically. I kind of look at the type of support that people are given into two different categories. You have emotional support people and you have solution-based people. I personally think when you're in a situation of wanting to be a profession now, and this is the perspective that I've looked at it. If you're someone like a therapist, you want to be in a situation of having a 50-50 split between both. You want to have that balance between being able to make them feel comforted by what you say and make them know that you care, make it aware that they care, but also realize that they can give you solutions. So, the absolute most important thing, and I think in this situation, you really want to emphasize on the emotional support. If you can find someone in your life who is willing to give you emotional support because of your situation, really, really let what you have out to them. And hopefully, and I severely hope this for you, that they will be there for comfort, that they hopefully won't be overwhelmed by any help that you need, by any amount of help that you need. And it's not that them feeling that way isn't wrong, but in your general situation, you deserve an outlet. You deserve a healthy outlet to let out all the pain that you dealt with for 9 years. You deserve that. And I think while this situation specifically is mostly a situation of allowing yourself to get the emotional support you need, if we're really going off of a solution-based thing, really try and occupy yourself with things that might distract you, that might kind of get your frame of mind more into what you are distracting yourself with. If you can find something to do that, that may be more of a temporary thing, but it helps. And if that's something you can do on a more consistent basis, even better. Even better, honestly. It's even better. So that is the advice I have for that. Again, I am sincerely sorry that you went through as much as you did. I could never imagine going through any of that. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't. But just know that just always remember that finding that emotional support ground is most important in a situation like this. Comfort is really what you need. Temporary solutions are good to keep you occupied in those ways, in those situations where you can't get that emotional comfort. Because, they can't always be there, obviously. But if you are in a situation where they can give you emotional comfort, emotional support, never take that offer up. Never feel afraid to open up to those who you know for a fact will sit there and listen no matter what the cost is. So that is the advice I have for you. Just going to look at the chat a little bit, see what's kind of going on. I'm a furry lol. I'm going to go to bed. Thank you, Jordan, and all of you. No problem. But yeah, that is, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to, just kind of discuss with you guys. I just wanted to have a nice little mental health Q&A. Thank you guys so much for actually giving me the opportunity to do this. You all had great questions, and I apologize if I didn't get to your question. I just wanted to make sure that I really went in depth with these questions, because it's very important that people realize the potential of the help they could get, the potential of what they could do to help themselves. It's very important that gets recognized. So, again, thank you all so much. I think I might actually do more streams like this. Because I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really good about what I've said this stream. And, I want to do more of these mental health streams. It's what I'm passionate about. And, it's just a big deal to me. So thank you all so much again for listening to me ramble on about the stuff. It's just, I'm very passionate about helping people. And I really just felt it was like most of my streams, it was very spur of the moment. But I feel really good. I was looking for something to really feel good about right now, and doing this really did help that. So thank you all so much. I am undoubtedly going to be doing a stream like this again. It may not be the next stream, but it will definitely happen again. Guarantee you that. So thank you all so much for all the support. No. And I guess I'll see you guys when I see you in the next stream. So, bye.